Thank you. Mike Wilson has already introduced place as one of three central themes in Highways England's drive to design quality. And as an architect specialising in the design of bridges and transport corridors, this makes a lot of sense to me, but it also aligns well with the work of city planners, urbanists, landscape designers and architects. To me, a sense of place is absolutely central to our identity, who we are, each and every one of us, as we go about our daily lives. In bridge design, it's easy to understand a sense of place in terms of the major landmarks which represent the country, region or city with which we identify. There's no surprise that the Euro note uses a bridge on every single one to represent some kind of central identity. Architects typically are familiar with the bottom right. The engineers are typically familiar with the top left, which is the 500 euro. This kind of identity is more subtle and difficult to appreciate at a personal and day-to-day level as we travel around the country, but it's equally important we get it right. We take the everyday for granted, but its effect upon our sense of place is important and very deep-rooted, such as your tiles on the tunnel, for example. When my children were young, this bridge, which is one of many spanning the M4, was known in our family as a dinosaur bridge. It's got its tail in one field and its head in the other, and it's stretching across the motorway. I stress this was their idea and not mine. But similarly, this bridge carrying the Great Western over the M4 is another family favourite, not for its beauty, although I'm actually rather fond of it. It has a distinctive bridginess. But because to us it was a personal landmark. This is exactly halfway between our house and the friends we visit in Devon. If we got the "are we nearly there yet" before we reached this bridge, we were in trouble. Equally, designed by Owen Williams and here being enjoyed by an early hipster, this bridge is one of a sizable family of structures which defines the southern section of the M1 motorway, and it reflects very much the era in which it was built. The structures have thoughtful details, common materials, and they're an excellent example of what Knight Architects refers to as the beautiful ordinary. And this concept of the beautiful ordinary became clear to us when the practice was designing bridges for the wider Olympic site in London before 2012. These structures were insisted upon by the planners of being of architecturally high quality, but not iconic. The iconic emphasis was put onto the stadia and then onto the landscape, and the structures must not compete with those. Indeed, iconic is a rather misunderstood and misused term, especially in the world of transport infrastructure. So to me, I think the beautiful ordinary is design which is well considered, attractive yet understated, and which provides a high quality backdrop to everyday life. The outcome is elegant and efficient structures which are in harmony with and add something to their environment. And again, to me, this concept of the beautiful ordinary is embodied in Patrick Murphy's artwork, Celebrating the Highway, although not for the iconic Needle Eye footbridge, but for the exit signage at junction 37 of the M1. The graphic design, dating back to 1965 by Kinnear and Calvert, is instantly recognizable, and it's come to define the British highway network, whether in blue or in green. More than 50 years on, it remains clear, legible, elegant, and the perfect combination of form and function. So why can't the structures we build today be just as enduringly beautiful? I'm delighted that Highways England has recognised the importance of a sense of place and the vital contribution that roads can make to the quality of our lives. This is now required by the Road to Good Design, and I'll briefly explore how my practice has interpreted its principles for the sense of place component, beginning with the requirement that good design, or the recommendation that good design fits in context. Specifically here, I think that it demonstrates sensitivity to the landscape heritage and local community. This is Ely in South Cambridgeshire, and a new bypass for Ely was proposed as long ago as 2003 to address serious traffic congestion problems in the city caused by the second most struck highway bridge on the railway network. However, its setting within the open fen landscape and protected views towards the historic cathedral generated very deep feelings and a lot of concern and opposition. But working closely with the local authority client, we developed a clear set of aims and objectives for the project. Workshop events with local stakeholders produced a broad positive support for our approach, which, as well as designing a low-lying structure that didn't interrupt long views and was sensitive to the open landscape, we provided a new pedestrian crossing of the River Great Ouse. This was identified as an opportunity to add value to the scheme and provide a circular walk and a crossing of the river where none previously existed. We even placed a lookout platform at the river, offering new views of the cathedral. Our approach to what was originally otherwise a routine highway project first explored the questions, why is this project needed and who will it affect? Before tackling the more familiar, technically focused, what's the solution and how will it be built? And in doing so, it generated social value for the community, as well as transport and environmental value for Ely. We try to encourage this simple approach to all of our projects if we're involved early enough. The second of the sense of place components is that it is restrained. And in particular, this is where the desire to do something and sometimes the desire to achieve something iconic can become problematic. As part of the A14 Huntingdon to Cambridgeshire improvement scheme, Knight Architects designed 2 new overbridges which had previously been earmarked as landmark opportunities. I think the word iconic might even have been used, to identify the locations of Swavesey and Bar Hill, whilst linking communities across the highway for pedestrian, cycle and equestrian users. Working for the contractor team, we saw the opportunity to fulfill this aim while turning down the architectural volume of the concept designs, thereby improving buildability and reducing costs. We designed 2 cable stay bridges with a common language, but whose distinctive lantern tower form is turned through 90 degrees at Bar Hill to accommodate a wider deck and provide separation between horses as well as people. The bridges are only minutes apart to viewers travelling along the A14 and will be recognised as a familiar pair, similar but different. The designs are considered both as aesthetic objects viewed in the landscape and also empathetically in terms of the user experience beneath them and on top of them. Again, we considered why and who before what and how. The third of the requirements of a sense of place is that it is environmentally sustainable, that it's resilient, enduring, and in particular that there is the opportunity to link it to the environment through which the road passes. Now, the dualling of the A465 Heads of the Valleys Road in South Wales is a significant project. It passes through dramatic terrain, and it's a protected environment rich in a sense of place and of natural and man-made history. Our design for section 2 of this explored the constantly changing corridor through it, of the entire 9-kilometre highway route. And the detail varies from very large to very fine. So the Gateway Arch marks the Brecon Beacons National Park at the top of the very narrow and steep Clydach Gorge. The topography of that gorge itself requires a split-level carriageway and a 2.5-kilometre long retaining wall up to 10 metres tall in places. And this was originally designed to be clad in locally won stone because it was felt quite strongly that that was the only way that planning permission would be granted for it. So with a design narrative celebrating the sense of place and specifically its geology, Knight Architects won support for a precast concrete solution with intermittent areas of stone that celebrated the place and the geology but brought off-site technology, improved constructability and safety, and brought cost and program benefits. And then further down the gorge, crossing the highway, there are a series of weathering steel overbridges which form a distinctive family of low-maintenance crossings linking communities to public transport and recreational routes, whilst all of them offering dramatic views of the landscape. It's important to remember that even those people who live there and see these views every day can enjoy them too. And the bold, sweeping structures also serve to identify and celebrate the unique stretch of highway, offering a memorable sequence of bridges in harmony with the landscape and whose details and material reference the industrial history. The guidance in the road to good design is so important because the sense of place is constant and it's all around us. It's found both in how things appear as objects in the landscape, which we refer to as the view of, but also how we experience them as users moving through the world and how they make us feel. We refer to that as the view from. Both ways of thinking must be valued and considered equally. And of course, there are projects like the A303 Stonehenge bypass where the environmental sensitivity is so incredibly great that the sense of place is obvious. But it's equally present and just as important beyond World Heritage Sites. If we fail to recognize that, we risk protecting only the best and worsening the rest. So with apologies to anyone here responsible, possibly including the client, the A34 Wolvercote bypass is my go-to, really good, bad example. This is an award-winning structure, and its design prioritized the reduction of construction impacts upon traffic flow, seeking to improve capacity of the A34. And the permanent structure is defined by a very clever sequence of construction, of temporary works, of jacking and sliding. Yet beneath the bridge, unseen by the users and apparently by the designers of the A34, is the A40 and the Grand Union Canal and the Oxford to Birmingham railway line and local walkers, cyclists and recreational users. Thousands of people, all of whom have to endure this chaotic disharmony of structure every day for 120 years. Yet just at 200 meters to the north, the A40 crosses the Grand Union Canal. I'm no great fan of pastiche architecture, but it's quite clear to me, and I'm sure to all of us, which of these two highway structures respects the sense of place on the rural outskirts of Oxford. Legislation demanding that we think of the needs of future generations is already here or it's on its way. For clients like Highways England and procurement frameworks like SCAPE, it's now a requirement that we up our game when it comes to highway design and the benefit it brings. From bodies including the National Infrastructure Commission and the Institution of Civil Engineers, there is evidence of the value good design adds to society and the environment. And with the Design Council, Design Commission for Wales, Architecture and Design Scotland, there is skilled support to achieve lasting change. As an industry, we talk the talk, but we are slow to change. When it comes to really good highway design, now is the time for us to walk the walk. Thank you.